Barca got what they deserved out of this game in the end, which was nothing.
Yep, of course, all to do in the second leg as it finishes Atletico Madrid 4, Barcelona 0. Luis Garcia is with us, but I want to start with Alex Kirkland. Pitch side, we discussed it at the break. I don't think I can remember a first half performance like that from Atleti in a very long time, Alex.
Yeah, it was incredible. The crowds were absolutely loving it. It felt like there were more goals there. They could have scored even more.
It is so frustrating with Atleti at times because I've said it many times on this show. They have got good players who at times feels the harness is on. And we saw a little bit of that in the second half going back into the shell, but that was kind of more natural because they had a 4-0 lead. But too often we've seen it in the first 20 minutes, half an hour or first half of games where it's taken until they're behind for them to play like this. And so that is a frustration. But I'm going to say something now that I don't think I've probably never said in terms of a result. And I honestly mean this. I said to you just before the end of the game, I think Atleti need a fifth. That sounds crazy. Because normally you say, I think they need a third. I think they need a second. I said to you, I think they need a fifth because that's how bonkers Atleti can be, particularly away from home. And that's how bonkers this Barcelona team can be.
Yeah.
Now, if they defend like that again at home, the chances are they won't keep a clean sheet. And will they defend like that again? I mean, possibly. Ian Dark and Steve McManaman in the commentary were saying, somebody's going to say to Hansi Flick, we can't keep doing this. But he's already been steadfast.
Yeah.
And said, I don't care. I'm going to take the bad ones on the chin and we're going to keep doing our defensive line this way. That's why I say it is possible for this Barcelona team to score 4 at home. There's no question. That's how good they can be. They were not tonight. Far from it. In fact, they were very poor tonight going forward. But they, you could argue, are one of the top 3 teams in European football in terms of attacking talent. So they could score 4. Mark my words. But they could lose another 4 at home.
Yeah.
That's why the second leg, and I mean it, people maybe think I'm crazy, the second leg ain't over. And I'm not selling that for TV.
No.
Because we have it. Because I'm telling you.
I think everyone thought you were.
I mean, in case I'm trying to play the corporate card and sell it, I am not. That's how crazy Barcelona could be.
Another crazy thing to say, which I think is true as well, Luis, 4-0. Barca were lucky to be 4-0 down at half-time.
Yeah, definitely. We saw just on the highlights another 2 chances, big chances in front of goal, where Atletico Madrid would have had even a bigger result. And I want to pick it from Korea. I totally agree. When I saw Kubasi scoring that first goal, I thought, okay, this is going to continue open. And the line was just right there. So I don't even have to do this U-turn or this movement first to try to break that line. You just have to make the run into the space. And when you face a team with so much speed on the wide areas, you're not going to struggle all the time.
I can guarantee you, almost guarantee you, the second leg, Barcelona will be much better going forward. Rarely see 2 performances like that from their front players. So I think that's pretty much nailed on. They will be much better at home going forward. What we can't guarantee is whether they clean up this defensive mess.
Yeah.
That's the craziness about it.
In theory, obviously, still win the quadruple, Alex. But when you see them like this, they could end up with nothing as well.
Yeah, well, that's the reality of the situation at this stage of the season, isn't it? They're still in all of these competitions. But there are questions. Look, they're the favourites right now to win La Liga. They're sure just a point ahead of Real Madrid, but look at Real Madrid. They are far from the finished article either. In the Champions League, it does feel like they've dropped off from where they were last season when they genuinely look like one of the 2 or 3 best teams in Europe. And the Copa del Rey now looks extremely difficult. I agree. It's not impossible. There's still a second leg to come. Unfortunately, they've got a long wait for that second leg as well. It's 3 weeks, isn't it? A big gap between these 2 legs. In that time, the state of the form of the 2 teams can change. Injuries, players coming back from injury as well. Barca with some big players missing today. So a lot can happen before that second leg, but it's a massive ask, especially that it finished 4-0. If it had been 4-1, okay. Maybe that's something you can do, but 4-0 is tricky. But look, yes, I mean, let's see. Like I say, right now, they're still in a great position in the league. let's see what happens in the Champions League. They won, of course, the Super Cup, and yeah, let's see what happens in this Copa del Rey second leg. But that's the nature of being in all these competitions at this stage. You can win them, or yeah, you could indeed go home empty-handed.
Wasn't the second? I might be the wrong fixture. Wasn't the second leg of this Copa del Rey last year 4-2?
4-4. It was 4-2 in the La Liga.
Oh,
I was at the game, Craig. I remember that great interview I did with Lamine Yamal at the end.
Was that the game I never get invited to?
It was 4-4 in the first leg and then 1-0 to Barca in the second leg.
But it was 4-2 was in the league.
4-2 in La Liga, yeah.
And I think, as Alex mentioned there, the fact that the game's not next week and is there a break, I don't know exactly how many players they will have back.
Just a reminder, Rafinha was out, Rashford was out, Gavi obviously out, and Pedri as well for this time.
Yeah, so I think Pedri was a month's injury, but that seemed like 3 weeks ago.
Yes, indeed.
So he should be somewhere around. If they get Rafinha and Rashford back, that's a bit of pace. Look, I think what Simeone will be saying in the dressing room, listen, don't get cocky about this, because, you know, this team going forward at home, they're going to absolutely go for it. Because they've been embarrassed tonight, Barcelona. So Hansi Flick has got a battle on in the league. He's got the Champions League, obviously, they're going to get a bye. Mm-hmm. So he's got all these things he's thinking about. He doesn't have to worry about that. But they were embarrassed badly tonight. So he will want a response. He will want a response from his team in the league, because he knows Real Madrid are sniffing behind him. He knows they're not a great side, but he knows they are still on their tail. And he will be looking for his players to give him in the second leg what he didn't get tonight. I mean, they were absolutely horrendous tonight. Yeah, they got better in the second half, but they had to push forward. And yeah, they defended a little better, but obviously Eric Garcia got sent off. That was last ditch. But they didn't have to defend as much in the second half, because Atleti just sat a little bit deeper, as they do sometimes. But what he saw from his team in the first half was nothing short of embarrassing. So I do expect a response from them, particularly in this competition. And that's why I still think this game, as big a gap as there is not quite dead in the water just yet.
March the 3rd will be the return leg at the Camp Nou. Alex, thank you very much. Thanks to Luis Garcia as well. For Barcelona, it's a Monday night game as a result of today's clash, meaning that Girona will take on the defending champions at the Camp Nou on the Monday. Preceding that on Saturday, it's Real Madrid against Real Sociedad. Those games, of course, all live on ESPN+.
They haven't complained about that, have they, Real Madrid? You know, Barca getting some rest, you know. Yes. Make them play on Saturday.
So it finishes Brentford 1, Arsenal 1. Let's just remind you what that means at the top of the table. Manchester City, with that win over Fulham yesterday, means that it's just 4 points. Now at the top, I think it's fair to say, obviously, Aston Villa out of the race, but City still breathing down the neck of Arsenal. Julian Laurent joins us. Jules, for those who are maybe focused on the Barcelona game, take us through this tie.
This was great, especially in the second half. The first half was maybe a bit more laborious from both teams, but Brentford in that first half preventing Arsenal from playing completely. Their press worked really well. Yannet caused a lot of problem. When Brentford were building up from the back, I never thought I would say that Arsenal would struggle in a game where Yannet was the key man and the key player, but that was the case in the first half. Second half, Arsenal were better. Mikel Arteta made some changes. They pressed better. They were more intense. I thought they deserved to take the lead. And after that, it was very much open. And when you look at this Arsenal team with Odegaard and Saka on the bench, who would come on later, but still sitting on the bench, no Saliba. And Mosquera at times, as we saw in the highlights, making a couple of mistakes against Thiago Silva. I think in the end, this is a good point for Arsenal away from home in a really tough game. As we saw for the expected goals, they were well beaten by Brentford on that data. So I think Mikel Arteta, in the end, even if you obviously dropped technically 2 points, I don't think Arsenal were good enough tonight to win at Brentford.
Nobody's doing... I saw Brentford, I've seen them a few times, but I saw them absolutely outplay Chelsea and lost because they made some mistakes. So it was always going to be a tough game for Arsenal. But, you know, the centre-halves with Thiago, you know, the physicality, 1-0 up. You know, at the end of the season, when you look back, 1-0 up, digging it out. Sunderland, 2-1 up, dig it out. Lost some points there. So these are the little moments where, at the end of the season, you look back and go, wow, it was a decent point in that, actually. Or that's where it's cost us. So we'll find out at the end of the year what that is. But I tell you what, Jules, nobody is doing more, in my opinion, with less in the Premier League than Keith Andrews.
Yeah, you're right. And at the time where we talk a lot about Thomas Frank and Brentford letting him go and replacing him with Keith Andrews, and this team being even better than they were last season without Mbomo, Norgard and Wissa is pretty much exceptional. And tonight again they do all the basics so right. Everything in terms of their discipline defensively, how aggressive they are on the front foot. They are one of the most physical teams in the league. The throws, the set pieces, Igor Thiago up front, that is such a handful. That midfield that works really well. And they were very smart, I thought, especially in the first half, which caught Arsenal a bit cold in the way they build up from the back, in their rotation in midfield, which I don't think Arteta and Arsenal players expected that from them, because that's not really what we've been used to so much. So, yeah, credit to Keith Andrews again for the job that he's been doing. And for the season that they're having, they're still very much fighting to finish top 6 and 7, by the way. Might still take them into Europe next season, which will be incredible for them.
Just keep throwing City a bone, didn't they?
Absolutely.
Man United at home was unexpected. Dropped points. A couple of others, Forest away. Brentford, good side, but I think they've won the last 4 there, I believe. Might be wrong, but I think they've won the last 4 at the GTEC Arsenal. And they just keep throwing that little bone City's way, just to keep them from being demoralised. Because when you put somebody 7, 8, 9 points behind at this point of the season, you go in the dressing room as an opposing player and go, we get no. You don't say it in front of the manager,
sure,
because he doesn't want to hear it. But amongst the players, they say, look at this Arsenal team.
Yes.
They're just not good. They're relentless, and it demoralises you as the chasing team. But they just keep giving. And I'm not saying they're really bad. They're not. They're the best squad in the country, the best team in the country. But they just keep giving Guardiola's team something to hang on to.
Gyökeres back in the starting 11. How would we rate him today, Jules?
I thought he worked really hard and clearly to beat that press, especially in the first half. Clearly the aim from Arsenal was to play long on him, and it's not easy when you've got Ayer behind you and the Brentford defenders, but I thought he did okay. There was a chance in that second half, we didn't show on the highlights, where Arsenal moved the ball really well on the right-hand side, and then Rice, instead of going for goal himself, tried to play the ball almost in the 6-yard box for Gyökeres, and Coyote comes back and just clear the ball at the moment where Gyökeres is going to hit it and score from that close range. You see the touchman that he had. The problem, obviously, as you can see, is the last 2 numbers in the stats. The fact that he has 0 XG because there was 0 shot on target, on goal, and that's the problem, obviously, in a team like that. But tonight was a game where it would have been great for him to score, sure, but you also needed him more for all that kind of work. To get the block higher from Arsenal, to try to beat their press, to be a handful for the Brentford defenders, which I think he can do and try to do tonight.
And currently where we are, Jules, say there's 3 games left in the season, right? Thinking ahead. City are level in points, are chasing you down. You've got Havertz, Gyökeres and Jesus fit. Where do you think he goes? What piece of the pawn does he put on the board?
I think Arteta will choose depending on who they face, because I think Havertz was not available, was not fit for tonight, so it was Gabriel Jesus or Gyökeres. In a game like this, away, under the rain, the cold, the wind, everything you want, you put Gyökeres to play against that Brentford defence more than Gabriel Jesus, to be fair. And that's what he did. If the opponent had been somebody else tonight, he might have well more fancied Havertz if he'd been fit, or Gabriel Jesus. The good thing is, we've explained before on the show, the different of profiles, which I think is very good to have variations in your number 9 that you can play, because it will help you, different combination you can have, different system, but also you can adapt to the opposition. Havertz is probably a bit of a mix of the two, and then you've got 2 extreme profiles between Gabriel Jesus and Gyökeres. And that could be a good thing, as long as, obviously, you pick the right guy, if you do that, depending on who the other position is.
What was you laughing at?
Was that a chess reference? What was that? What piece of the pawn do you put on the board?
I'm not a chess player.
Well, clearly. What does that even mean?
It's all I can think about.
Jules, with your Arsenal...
Hey, Jules got it.
Well, he was being polite. Jules,
I'll go home,
With your Arsenal ways, Gyökeres is great. Are you worried?
No, and I don't think anybody should be worried. Why would you be worried for?
4 points, Jules.
But 4 points, it could well be 6, not this weekend because the FA Cup, but the following weekend. Or, it could go up to more than that, or it could stay at 4. And, City will have to play Brentford. Okay, it'll be at the Etihad, but they will still have to play Brentford. City are not going to win every single game between now and the end of the season. Neither will Arsenal.
He's
worried.
I'm not worried. I promise you.
That's too much. Where is your bishop
I
on the
don't
board?
understand why you would say they're worried. 4 points.
Look, see, your voice
and
has
a
gone
very good
high. You're
difference.
talking
Not by
quicker,
much.
Jules. You can feel it.
Because I'm trying to convince you and to tell you that relax. Let's all relax here.
Right, lots happened at the bottom of the table, of course, over the last 48 hours. Sean Dyche sacked at Nottingham Forest after that goalless draw against Wolves. We'll talk about that in a moment. But Spurs, of course, getting rid of Thomas Frank after their defeat midweek. Jules is still with us. Craig, you weren't here yesterday, obviously, to react to it. We spoke after that Spurs game and their poor performance once again. You were surprised a little bit because when we were discussing it.
No, I wasn't
after the
surprised. I
match-
just thought, I thought they would not bend the knee
Right.
to the supporters as quickly. But clearly they've taken stock of not just the recent performance, but don't forget they qualified in the Champions League and they've got a bye. Can you believe it? But I think, where they are in the league, and I know they've got a lot of injuries, but where they are in the league, the performances, the results, the way that they've been battered by teams and they've had to come out in the second half and try and dig themselves out a hole, the early sort of descent from players to the manager while walking off the field, the lack of discipline from your captain, which is not necessarily your fault, but you have to sort of deal with that and try and sort of, make a big decision on people like Romero. I think there's been so many things that I just felt that Thomas Frank is, to be quite honest with you, I think a little bit out his depth, jumping from the expectations at Brentford and how they played at Brentford with the physicality and the counter-attacking play compared to what they do now with Keith Andrews, which we talked about. They try and play actually football now and do play some good football. I think going into Tottenham and trying similar stuff is not what they wanted, and it certainly wasn't happening. So I think it's a club that doesn't know what direction it wants to go in, if I'm being honest with you. I think they're swimming about in the pond and they don't know what side to go to. They just don't know. They're sinking. So what decision they'll make now, I don't know. But yeah, I know you said it the other day that I think he should go, and I think it would be hard to argue against that. I just felt the board would sort of bury their head for a few more weeks and see if it would go away. But I think clearly they've looked at it and said, no, listen, things ain't getting any better. And forget this pie in the sky about being in the Champions League, because the first half decent team they're going to come up against, they're getting knocked out. Yeah. It's as simple as that. They're getting knocked out. And so the league is the important scenario for them, and they are spiralling to a relegation battle, so it had to be done.
Jules, we've heard stories about Thomas Frank and where it went wrong, for example, on the training pitch. Just give the headlines of what we've heard over the last 24 hours.
I mean, there are so many. And again, I don't want to go again after him. For me, it's one of the most embarrassing, humiliating tenure that we've had for a manager in one of the big clubs in England. I'm not talking, smaller clubs or lower divisions. For a top club in England, the stint that he had at the club is, for me, one of the most embarrassing, from being humiliated publicly by Van der Ven and Jet Spence after that game where he asked them to go and clap the fans and they didn't even look at him, to the Arsenal Cup in that away game at Bournemouth, to obviously the bad results that we've seen. I mean, over the last 10 league games, I think they've taken as many points as Wolves, for example. So from start to finish, it was bad. But I think for me, what was the biggest problem is the lack of authority that he brought and players not respecting him, which could be on the players, sure, but when you arrive in a big dressing room like that, and Craig knows it, with big egos, big name players who've won more than you, because by the way, you've won nothing in your career, which is true. If you don't have that authority, if there's no discipline, you've lost already, even before the season started. Then, if you can't even engage with your players at training, making your training sessions interesting, where they actually feel, okay, he might not have won anything, but there might be something interesting here, you've even more lost than just by the lack of authority and discipline. And that was also the case. There's so many incidents, there have been so many incidents, so many problems. For me, he thought, probably very naively, that he could be exactly the same than he was at Brentford. Same guy, same training methods, same methodology, same philosophy, and just take it from Brentford, South London, Southwest London, and take it to the north of London, to Spurs. You can't coach Spurs like you were used to coaching Brentford. It doesn't work. It just doesn't add up. You need to step up. It's a massive step up, by the way. Brentford, where everybody's happy about anything. They're just so happy to be in the Premier League. To go to Spurs with high expectations, high pressure, fans who demand, probably a bit too much, but demand far more than the fans that you met at Brentford. And yet, he never really understood that he had to try to step up, to adapt himself to the new environment that he was in. And that, again, was a massive mistake from him.
Wait, didn't Jong say at the start of that sentence, I don't want to pile on him here?
Yeah. I don't want to pile on him. I'm just going to take the baseball back to him. I agree. I totally agree. Out his depth. Unfortunately for him, out his depth. And it's, in terms of the coaching scenario from clubs, it's kind of akin to Xabi Alonso, isn't it? Trying to go into Real Madrid with all the right thought process, but doing what he did at Leverkusen with these egos, with these superstars. You have to adjust, whether that's right or wrong. Whether you're sitting at home going, well, players should just do what a manager wants. Yeah, in theory, yes, but it's not as simple as that. You have to go in. Some egos need massaged. Other people need a kick up the backside. And go back to the respect that clearly was lost when Spence and Van de Ven ignored the manager. And I've rarely ever, if ever, seen that. That is just lost the dressing room, right? But you don't lose a dressing room, or you shouldn't, when you walk in and you're not a big name and you haven't had a big playing career and you haven't managed big clubs. Most players are still giving you a chance. They're giving you, unless you've got a real bad apple in the dressing room, most dressing rooms are giving you the chance still. Okay, Thomas Frank, yeah, you're not this superstar player, and you're not coming from Real Madrid or Barca or Bayern Munich or whatever it is. You're coming in from Brentford, but we're going to give you a chance. But something else has happened in the dressing room or on the training ground where these players, some of them, maybe not all, some of them have gone, he's clueless.
Right.
He's out his depth and he doesn't know what he's doing. Because players just don't start blanking managers because they haven't had a big-time career. Something else is, and we talk about it with Stevie and Xhaka a lot, is that players can smell it when you walk into a dressing room. That authority, that understand. When a coach puts training sessions on, players will go, I'll tell you what, that was decent.
Right.
I'll tell you what, that was interesting. Oh, I like that. Yeah, he's sharp, he's on it. But ultimately, and the opposite side of the spectrum, if a manager comes in and puts these sessions on that are embarrassing, players that have won World Cups like Romero and Dutch internationals like Van de Ven and many, many others will just go, he thinks we're going to do what they were doing at Brentford. And you lose the dress. And once that happens, you are screwed.
And then we've seen the results of that on the pitch.
And we've seen the results. And yeah, they've rolled their sleeves up in some of the games and came back. But if you watch the bulk of their games, particularly the first half performances, most of the teams they've played against have rolled them over. And then the players have come out in the second half because the home crowd have been battering them and rolled their sleeves up. Playing for themselves probably more than playing for the manager, because 60,000 or however many it is are getting on the back. As soon as that happens as a player, you have to go out and try and quieten the crowd. So it seems to me that a lot has been going on behind the scenes, and I'm not saying it's right, but it seems to have turned a lot of the senior players against Thomas Frank. And by the way, I'm not making excuses for how he's been sacked. You've just got to deal with that as a coach.
Sure.
And I think he sowed his own seeds when he went in there with how he's gone about things.
Who's going to be the next manager, Jules?
Well, I think they're going to go for an interim coach between now and the end of the season, obviously, which I think is the right thing to do because you just save the season, right? There's nothing for you to play for. You're not going to win the Champions League. You're not going to finish in Europe through the league either. All you need to do is avoid relegation. That's it, basically. So it'd be right for them to go for an interim coach, whether that's Johnny Heitinga, who, remember, we talked about it at the time when he was appointed as Thomas Frank's assistant, not coming at all from the kind of Thomas Frank team that he had at Brentford before, just came out a bit of nowhere, really. And we thought, this is a bit weird. You did wonder already at the time if they were thinking, once Thomas Frank is gone, you've got the perfect interim coach there in Johnny Heitinga, who's got a bit of experience, like he was with Slot at Liverpool. Okay, Ajax as a number one didn't really work out for him, but he could do that job. Ryan Mason could also come and help for the next 3.5 months or so, and that probably would be enough because I don't think they will go down. And then the big one is who's coming next properly as a permanent coach. Pochettino is the dream that the club wants. They want him back. The fans want him back. They're desperate for him to come back. I think he would like to come back too. In the right conditions, probably that means with the power that he wants, certainly in terms of transfers and things like that. But I think if you give him that, I'm not saying this is the right thing. I always struggle a little bit with managers or even players coming back to a club where they were successful a few years down the line. I'm not sure if is that the right thing to do, but it's certainly the top of their shortlist. And then below that, you've got De Zerbi, you've got even a Robbie Keane, you've got people like that. But Poch right now is the front runner by far.
Is Bournemouth's form ruled out even Areola? I mean, because he was flavour of the month for a while, and they've sold the best players. They had a great start to the season, then they fell off a cliff, and they're starting to pick it up again. Glasner's the same. It's taken 3 or 4 months for the perception of these managers, not the reality, the perception, which is sometimes difficult for a club to sell to the fans. Oh, look at Palace are spiralling towards the relegation. Bournemouth have had this season. Sometimes fans don't see the bigger picture. These two managers, 6 months ago, were the top of the list on a lot of teams. But it's the perception of the seasons that some of them have had. And I think I love watching Roberto De Zerbi's teams, but he's gone from a dumpster truck, at Marseille. If he goes into Tottenham, with how they run that club, he'll burn the place down. I mean, he'll just been, they'll be knocking heads within a few months. So it's a real difficult one. I'm with Gilles in a sense. I don't think the fairy tale story often works, does it, going back in Pochettino? But at this moment in time, there are not too many out there, because we know Man United are looking around. They've got Michael Carrick doing a decent job, but where are they going to go? There might be 1 or 2 other clubs looking for a manager. Who the hell knows what's going to happen at Liverpool at the end of the season? It's unlikely Arne Slot will be out of job, but not impossible. So it's not just going to be Tottenham looking for a top-class manager. So, again, yeah, you might want to go short-term to stave off relegation. Can you believe we're saying that? Talking about Tottenham with their squad, but we are. So you might want to go short-term, but there is a danger other clubs will come and pickpocket some of these managers that are available, and you'll be left not even with the second best, third best, potentially the fourth best, and you're back to sort of square one again.
Fourth, Nottingham Forest on their 4th manager now of the season. Victor Pereira looks like he's going to come in to replace Sean Dyche, who was of course sacked yesterday.
Well, who was in the show? It was 2 days ago we were on. It was Stuart Robson.
Yeah, Robbo, Nadem and you.
Nadem and myself. And we had a question next to time. He said, which team is more likely to go down at this moment in time? And I'm not saying we're right, but all 3 of us said Nottingham Forest, and that was before the Wolves game. And we still expected them to get the 3 points against Wolves, which they did not. And even at that, with that expecting 3 goals, we still felt West Ham, although defensively they can't keep clean sheets, they have a manager who, at the end of the day, did a much better job at Nottingham Forest than Dyche or Postecoglou, although they didn't get very long. But they're the club at the moment that seem to be struggling more to get results. The others, Tottenham will get out of it. I mean,
so is this the right decision? Is Dyche the right man?
Well, I mean, in terms of the form and in terms of the ownership, it's not a surprise. When you go to work for Marinakis at Nottingham Forest, it's not a normal football club, the way it's run. It's kind of haphazard. In fact, it's very haphazard behind the scenes. As you know, I don't know Sean Dyche so well, but I know his assistant, Ian Woan. I was his neighbour for years. And my wife asked his wife about something to do with tickets or mascots or that, and the message came back and said, give it a bit of time, this is not run like a normal football club.
Right.
So at that point, they knew that if they weren't getting results, they were out.
Right.
But they would have known that when they took the job. So you can't be shocked when you're working for this fella, because he just hires and fires at will, and they're in Stoom. they're in Stum, since all this Nuno Espirito Santo and Edu and the owner, since they all get in this sort of head for head, there was only going to be one winner in terms of who kept their job and who lost their job, and that was going to be Nuno losing his job. But that was to the detriment, if we're being honest about it, that was to the detriment of the football club, the team and the results.
If you want to hear Jules' view on it all, you can check out the latest edition of the Jules and Naden podcast, which is available to listen to now. It's fair to say, I think, if you're not a Brentford fan, everyone will be rooting for Macclesfield on Monday. That bookends our FA Cup coverage. It all starts tomorrow. Hull City against Chelsea, Wrexham against Ipswich. Jules with us. But I tell you what, Craig, that's such a great way to sum up the cliched magic of the Cup, isn't it?
Yeah, I said to you during that piece, got so much respect for lads like that, out there grafting in a normal 9-to-5 job, you know, coaching kids a couple of days a week, some of them, and then getting out there grafting, getting their opportunity. Because most of them will never play in the Premier League. Maybe not even play in the Championship or even League One. Whether they win or not, I don't know. But what a chance to write another piece of history on Monday for these boys. What a fantastic story. And I love, actually, you know when some of these pieces are on?
I do, Craig. I've worked with you for 13 years.
Not when we do some of these pieces. Yeah. I just switch off. I go, I just can't. But actually, I couldn't stop listening to how these lads spoke and what it meant to them. And that's not money. That's just passion.
Absolutely, Jules.
Yeah, completely. That's why we love football so much, isn't it? For stories like that. And I don't know if they can do it again on Monday. Obviously, doing it once was pretty special. And I guess they will have the belief that it's another Premier League team, but it's still at their stadium on the artificial pitch. In the night time this time, not in the afternoon, but you know that this is something that can happen again. But whether or not it happens, they've made history already, and they did it for Ethan, as we saw in the piece. They did it for themselves. It's something that nobody will ever forget. The day that the FA Cup holders, Premier League team as well, were knocked out by a team from the 6th division.
Thank you very much, Jules. Of course, meanwhile, our feature game today was Barcelona against Atletico Madrid. There will be more reaction to that, of course, on the next edition of ESPN FC. Plus, of course, we continue looking ahead and looking back, of course, Chelsea in action tomorrow in the FA Cup. Right then, Atleti against Barcelona. Let's get some reaction from Jong and Lookman.
What was to play a game like this today?
No, it was amazing today. The energy that the stadium had today was electric. Gave us extra energy. I think in the first 10-15 minutes of the first half we showed our intentions, and we kept that throughout the game. So that set the tempo for us, and we continued that, and we played a great game today, not just in offense but also in defense as well. So clean sheet today as well, so kudos to everyone.
Being able to dominate a team like Barcelona the way you did, scoring so many goals but having so many chances as well, and not letting them develop their game. How do you do that?
No, just obviously try to be deadly in the moments, in those key moments. So it's quite vital in both boxes. And today we was very sharp in both boxes, so that was key today. And we took our chances well, and we kept on playing, kept on creating chances. So that's always a positive. When you create chances, you're always going to score goals. So yeah, it's key.
How would you explain what happened tonight?
I think first half was a very poor first half from us. They did very well, but it was also a very poor first half from us. We lost the balls in areas where you can't lose the ball, especially against a team as Atletico, because they're waiting for this, and then in the counter-attack they play good because they have a lot of quality. They had runners, and we suffered too much. Also, our rest defense was not how it should be in those games. So there's a lot of things we can improve.
Why was that?
I don't know. Like with the ball, sometimes you have days that it's not working, and I think we also played the balls too much into areas where we shouldn't play them. So that's about choices. And then in the rest defense, we were just not well positioned.
Barcelona, of course, looking to bounce back, looking to change that 4-0 deficit, the second leg, which is live on ESPN Plus at 3 p.m. Eastern. So that's just a reminder, March the 3rd against Atleti. And then the other semi-final, Real Sociedad, of course, with a 1-0 lead going into their clash against Athletic Club. Welcome in to the latest edition of Extra Time. Jules is here, as is Craig. This is such a stupid question to start.
What did I say in the last? What did I say when we were getting counted out of the programme there? No stupid question.
Oh, this is dreamland, but we'll do it anyway for you, Jules. Could you see Spurs going after a big name for their managerial job like Alonso or Xavi?
I mean, as we mentioned on the show, I think Poch right now is the front runner. We were told yesterday and today again that is the top of the shortlist. What's interesting in this, and we mentioned it on the show as well, is I think the experiment in a way. I know it's a bit harsh on Thomas Frank to call it like that, but this is what it was, of going for a smaller name coach, if you want, from a smaller club, hasn't worked out. And then I think the next one will be, and I know before the Mourinho's and Conte's didn't work either. I'm not saying that going for a big name is the key here, but I think this is what they're going to do.
Alonso and Xavi aren't going to want to go to Spurs. They don't want to go to Spurs, do they, Jules?
Yeah, but as a club, but as a club, you have to try anyway.
Sure.
The worst they can say is no, and then it's okay. There's no shame in you trying to get Xabi Alonso. If he says no, he says no. There's no problem. But I think if Poch doesn't come for whatever reason, I think they'd be right to go after the biggest name first and then see what they get.
Yeah, you can go for it.
Well, let's not forget. I mean, Xabi Alonso's. I mean, I totally agree. You try and get the best you can. The chances of them getting Alonso are very slim. And the Xavi, he had a good year at Barcelona, and then he had a really bad one. And there was a lot of problems in the dressing room. That sound familiar with Tottenham? So I'm not quite sure he has the managerial experience, to be honest with you, to come in. Certainly he's an absolutely wonderful player.
Yeah.
But things went south very quickly at Barcelona at the end, so I'm not quite sure that would be a good fit for Tottenham, to be honest.
Look, we had a lot of these. Craigs, please don't talk about Barca's high line today. Macca was having a breakdown, wasn't he, when they were defending inside the opposition half, trying to hide the
Well, we watched,
line.
as you know, I don't know how long we've had La Liga now, 3 or 4 years.
I think longer, Craig.
But certainly since Hansi Flick has come in, we have talked about it religiously every weekend. And Hansi Flick is, has been to press conferences even after bad performances and even after defeats and bad defending and said, no, this is what we're doing. We just need to do it better. Unfortunately, this season, they're winning the league because Real Madrid somehow are still in the title race. They're winning the league. They're still in the Champions League. They're still in all these competitions. But it's undeniable. Defensively, they are worse than last year. And they are taking more risks. The high lines became higher. It's now halfway line, high line. As in today in the first leg of the semi-final Copa del Rey, they were actually stood in the halfway line, trying to play offside with Atletico players who were in their own half and can't be offside. I mean, it was just bonkers. So the fact that it was 4-0 today, after 45 minutes, was some sort of amazing bemusement because it could have been 6 or 7. But even I feel even if it was 6 or 7, with next game out for Barcelona, I still think we see the same thing. I mean, the Barca fans have been a little bit in denial about, well, we'll win this and we won that, so we'll just get on with it. But I think ultimately, it might not cost them in La Liga, but I do think it'll cost them in the Champions League.
Meanwhile, anyone who saw the show would have seen Jules actually answer this question. I'm sure you discussed this in the show, but does anyone want to defend Gyökeres? This is Gyökeres, of course, who had no shots on target or indeed off target today, the least amount of touches in the box, and the worst completion pass rate. Yet still you defend him, Jules.
I like him. And now, I talked about it with Nathan today as well.
Oh no.
But listen, it's really interesting. The goals he scored in Portugal, great. You can't take that away from him. To score 50 goals in a season, wherever you play, is great in itself. But there's been many games now since he moved to Arsenal where you saw that maybe the extra second that you would get in Portugal, because the level is obviously not as high as in the Premier League, was suiting him, and he would score that goal. There's a chance, I don't know if you guys remember against Leeds, for example, where Trossard plays the ball over. It's a reverse pass over the in behind the Leeds defense, and Gyökeres is through on goal. There's Rodon behind him, but he's going to be one-on-one with Darlow. but there's that extra second again that he's kind of waiting for. And by the time he's about to take the shot, Rodon has come back and I blocked the shot. In Portugal, he would have scored his goal every single time. In the Premier League, that half a second or extra second that he takes, because that's what he was used to in Portugal. So why go quicker in Portugal when you can take that extra second? In the Premier League, that doesn't cut it anymore. And unless he understands that and can change his game slightly, I'm not saying that he needs to transform into Cristiano, but just because the defenders are better here, because the goalkeepers are better. The goalkeepers will be better at saving your shot than anything he faced in Portugal. Same with the centre-backs. And right now, he's just not there yet. He might never be, he might improve on that, but it's very obvious to see that he's still very much in like Portugal mode when he's one-on-one with the keeper or in the box, and that's just right now not good enough for the Premier League to be more prolific.
I get in Portugal mode, but it's usually the Algarve and golf.
Oh, yeah.
But you know, the one thing I'd say about Gyökeres, and I'm not defending him here any way, shape or form. Some of the games he may have had some chances, but it's not like he's a player who's missing a chunk of chances every game, and you're saying, "Where's this guy that was finishing at Sporting Club?" He's not. The pressure for him in the Premier League is too much. He's snatching at it. I think one of the issues for him, and it is an issue for him, is that he's not getting, in a lot of the games, he's not getting a lot of chances. And when you're not getting a lot of chances, you have to make those for yourself. Mm-hmm. And he's not that kind of player. You know, if you're not getting the supply line that you want, the other guys who are maybe they've got more strings to their bow than just scoring goals and being physical and sort of all that sort of stuff, might go and make something happen for themselves. Get the ball turned, run at defenders, beat a man, batter it in the top corner. He's not that type of player. So he's relying on the service, and that service isn't really come. If we've been honest about it, he's not walking off at the end of most games, and he's had, 6 chances, and he's put 5 of them over the bar.
Yeah.
You can barely remember any chances that he's actually getting. Now, is that all down to Arsenal, or is it partly down to him and his movement as well? I don't really have that answer. But he's not scoring a lot of goals, obviously, because he ain't getting a lot of chances.
Jules, do you really think that Arsenal are going to win the Premier League? You spoke about this on the show as well. You got a bit high and squeaky and defensive over it. So what percentage? What percentage are you giving us here, Jules?
The 4 points clear, 60-40 for me. I think they will. I think they will win the Premier League. I think they'll hold on. I think they're the best team in the country. Again, they will drop more points between now and the end of the season. So will City and Villa and everybody else. So I think you have to be ready to sometimes being 4 points clear, maybe even less, sometimes more. There's obviously the big game in April at the Etihad against City, which could shape. Then I think they've got 3 games left after that before the end of the season. So anything can happen. But right now, I think if you had said to them at the start of the season, by mid-February, you would be 4 points clear of City, I think they would have taken it.
Be interesting.
60-40?
I'm kind of 70-30, maybe even a bit more. I do think they'll win it.
Right.
And I think they'll win it because I think they will have their hiccups themselves, but I think City will have more. I mean, they were really good against Fulham yesterday, but the game was over in half an hour, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And I don't think Fulham's record is particularly good at the Etihad. But I think they have more issues to solve, notwithstanding the points within their squad, than Arsenal have. And I think that'll be... but unless Arsenal get this... Unless they get so tense that they drop another point or two, and City, as I mentioned to you in the show, just keep chipping away, and all of a sudden 1 or 2 players in the dressing room have a panic up and it starts to spread through, then that could be an issue. But I don't think that will happen looking at the size of the squad and the experience of some of the players. One of the interesting things is going to be for me, if there is still a 3 or 4 point gap by the time they play City at the Etihad, one of the things he's been when he's played in some of the bigger games is really cautious. Mm-hmm. Happy to soak up the pressure and maybe take a point. I know a point would be good in that scenario, but if it's quite tight by the time it gets to the game in Manchester, is he going to go and try and put it to bed once and for all, or is he going to go there and be a little, unsure and be more worried about getting beat than winning the game? I suppose if it's tight by the time it comes along, we'll find out, but it might not be. By that time it could be quite a big gap.
Final question, Jules. Do you usually fall asleep watching Arsenal?
No, I don't. Why? Should I?
I think it's the lack of entertainment maybe they serve up.
I thought the second half tonight was great.
Oh, okay. All right, don't get defensive again. That is it. That brings us to the end of the show. Craig, it's our last show together before you go on holiday. Why are you coughing?
Listen, that's nobody's business.
Well, you're going to be away. You're going to be away for a week. People won't know where you are.
No.
They'll be wondering.
No.
Where's Craig? Where's Mr. Sunshine in the
In
corner?
bed.
Craig is back, though, tomorrow to reflect on Hull against Chelsea.
Wrexham.
And, of course, Who are Wrexham playing?
Ipswich.
You can see those games live
I believe.
on ESPN+.